Hello YouTube, this is Matt here once again with another Workbench video. This one's going to be slightly different as this video will go hand in hand with an article that I'm writing for a magazine at the moment, which is called the Railway Magazine Guide to Railway Modelling, which is free in all good model shops. I've been asked to write an article on basically making transfers, and I've done this for a couple of models which you can see in front of you here. This is a small selection of my fleet of South Eastern Chatham locomotives, mainly kits. The latest one I've redone is the one at the front here, which is the South Eastern Chatham 01, which has just recently been returned to traffic on the Bluebell Railway. And I made my own transfers for this using photos and also a few other little bits and pieces I found around the internet, which I'll talk you through in a little while. The subject of this video is one of my P-class locomotives, which I haven't touched since I completed it back in 2010. If you look at this one at the back here, you can see that I've completely changed the way I've done my models in terms of making transfers for them. You can see I've pretty much done every single surface and face on this one, so it actually has the actual proper livery on it. Compared to the one that I made in 2010, you can see I've made a more simple livery of the South Eastern Chatham livery. This I think it was sort of copied from some of the illustrations they put up on the Bluebell Railway of what they were going to actually put it into when it entered service. This one didn't happen. It's more like the first P-class I showed you behind. So this livery is wrong and out of date. It was originally painted with Phoenix paints, with the lining just a simple lighter green around the lettering and the emblem, as well as the etch plates, which were from gill plates at the time, as well as the transfers as well. So this one is looking a little bit shabby, and it's not quite up to date with everything else on the table. So I thought I'll pick on this one to strip down and start again, and show you how I go about making my own transfers for these models. So first stage of making your own transfers is basically research, and research is key to any project. Make sure you've got lots of pictures, mainly pictures which are square onto the surface and that you can use to actually make transfers with. It generally helps also have a look around the internet, see if there's anything around, which I'll come on to a little bit later, as my way of making transfers has now changed slightly compared to how I used to do them. But I'll show you a couple of pictures on my trip to the Bluebell when I was making my own transfers from scratch. So this is an image of the C-Class 592. This photo is, as you would expect, you take a square-on photo of the surface and you can use this to make a transfer. You can also adjust the colours to suit what you need with your paint, and that's very important because some printers print lighter greens and darker greens depending on what printer you're using, so you will need to do several test prints to make sure you get the right colour or the right shade of green. So photos like this is important. So if you go down to a preserved railway, take a photo square on of each area that you want to do: splashes, cab sides, boiler lining, tender lining, anything like that. So that's an example of that one. There's a bit of lining on the actual boiler cladding, and one at the back of the P-class, which will be useful for the one that we're doing at the moment. And one of the side of the H class as well. All these photos are useful to make your own transfers. Now, as I mentioned, my way of making transfers has slightly changed recently due to Hornby putting up a excellent image on their website when they were still basically making the livery samples for the Southeastern Chatham H class, which is due sometime at the end of this year, October-November time. And they posted up this image, which is extremely useful for me. I've adjusted the colours slightly on this, so it's slightly darker than what's on their website, as it was too light in terms of the green. But this is very useful for people like me or anybody else who make transfers. We can put that into a photo editing software, adjust the colours, chop it up, make it into a shape that we need, smaller, bigger, whatever. And you can also use the lettering or the emblem itself, which I'll get onto in a bit. But transfers for those are available now from Fox Transfers, which is rather handy. So after doing the research, we then go to the model, we measure the model or the area that we want to do, and then we'll make a working area of that space that we've just measured, so we can work on it and get the right size transfer for the model. And I'll show you how to do that now. Right, so we've got our model that we're going to measure up. So basically what I need to do is measure an area of what I'm making. So for example, on the bits I've already made, I've made the tank, I've made the bottom two sides of the cab, and also the back, and also the front of the tanks as well. But what we need to do is basically get an idea of the size of the area we're working to. So for example, I have a wonderful little vernier gauge here, which gives me an accurate measurement of what I'm measuring, which is very helpful to produce the area that I'm working to. So I'm going to measure the entire side panel. It's about 5.5 millimeters. Yeah, 5.52. So that's the width. Then we measure the height from the top of the tank to the top of the cab, which is 11.2. So that gives us an area of what we're working to. What we'll need to do now is take those measurements, and what we'll do is then we'll put into the computer what size area we need to work to. Alright, so on the computer now. Now I use a photo editing piece of software which I'm quite familiar with, and I've always used it for making transfers. So what I suggest to you, if you're going to make your own transfers, is use a piece of software that you are familiar with, how it works, and you know how to use in the best way possible. The software I'm using here is ArcSoft Photo Studio 6, I think it is. There's a couple of downloads around which you can get it for free. The original software came with a scanner that I had a long time ago, which has now disappeared. So this program I like because it does what I want it to do. So I created a new page, which you can see here. Now it's in centimeters, so we're going to have to convert millimeters into centimeters, which is not a problem. So the width was pretty much 5 mil, so 5.5, 5 and a bit. The height was 11.2, that's pretty much accurate. And we want it on the highest resolution. I'm going to put 600 in there. You can go higher if you wish. Let's go to 7, shall we? Just make it a little bit better. That'll give you how big the file is going to be, and we press OK, and that creates our working area. So that is just a blank working area of what we're working to at the moment. And what we'll need to do is we'll need to drag in a photo, or as I showed you before, the JPEG by Hornby. As I said, I've adjusted the colours on this so it's slightly darker than what it appeared on the Engine Shed blog by Hornby. But what I basically do is, very simply, is I basically copy and paste areas that I require. So for example, I require that side and the other side, and what I'll do is I'll overlay each layer to make it into what I require. I think it'll probably take up to 6 or 7 layers to try and get to where I need to go. But all the red outlining and the black outlining will be very useful. And you basically get the select tool, which is on the top left here, which you can just about see. Copy and paste, you select what you need. I'll select up to there. It's only a very small area. File, edit, copy. Go back to your untitled document and paste. You move that down to the area you want it to, so let's go in this corner here. Go back to document. We'll do the top bit. Copy and paste. It's worth mentioning as well that I've actually resized this JPEG image, so it's slightly smaller than it was on the Hornby website. I think I've resized it to about 85%, so reduced it by about 25, which is actually the correct size for a PE class, which is quite useful. I'll go back to our document again, copy and paste again. As you can see, it just basically layers up, and we just have to align it. There you go. So as you can see, I'm already building up a picture of what I want it to look like. If I go back to one I made earlier, if I can find it, top, this is what it looks like at the end of it, but you can see various layers. So if I just remove that, you can see I've widened it and spread it out a little bit. If I just unclick bit by bit, this was 9 layers this took to make this area. It took me about 5 minutes to do. Once you've got the system, it works. So just click all that all back on so you can see how it's built up. 2, 3, 4. So that's 4 layers, and I got rid of the top so I can edit the sides to go around the cab opening. But you can see I've widened and adjusted it to what I need it to do. That took me about 5 minutes, which is about the length of this part of the video. Doing it on this program, you can also merge all the layers to make a JPEG image. So if I, for example, go into layer, merge all, that will make one image. And when you do that, you can have quite a lot of fun with it. For example, if I find an image, for example, in my research of, say, Bluebell. This is one I just grabbed off the internet just for the sake of it. I can't remember whose photo it is. Photo of Bluebell. What I do is take that, bung it in the program, it will load it in, and you can use an eyedropper tool to select the colour. So I've got a nice dark blue off of the image, and I can go to that one, and I can basically use the bucket fill tool on the merged image, so merge all layers, and I can just drop a new colour in and it will turn blue. So I can do various liveries as well, and I need the light blue off the lining as well. So create the eyedropper, get the eyedropper, go back to your work surface, use the bucket tool to fill and drop. As you can see there, I've now changed from green to blue, which is very straightforward, very simple. And once you've got all this mapped out, that's how easy it is. So just to change the livery, that easy. And also, if you have any reasonably good photos like square on of the locomotive, and you don't have the lettering or the emblem, like this one for example, I don't know whose photo this is again, it's just one I found via Google image search, and you can see we've got a nice square on side of Bluebell. Not 100% square, but good enough anyway. So we can use that to edit a photo I've already or an image I've already made. If I just undo all the work I've just done, I spent about an hour last night doing this, and that was done using those same images. I just copied and pasted, tied it up around the lettering, and put on the logo. So after this, what I'll do then is make a sheet of transfers for each area of for a set. So this, for example, is for the Southeastern Chatham 01. This is to the correct size. So all I need to do is basically use some transfer paper or decal paper, which I've purchased from Crafty Computer Paper. Make sure it's the white backed transfer paper. Put it in your laser printer or inkjet printer and print away. If you're using inkjet, make sure you seal the print ink in before you put it into water, or else the colours will run. Laser is a little bit more straightforward. You cut around it and use it as a normal water slide transfer, and I'll show you that in the next part of this video series. I hope this has been insightful and interesting, and hope to see you in the next part of how to make your own transfers and use them as well.